Welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. I have a first time on the show today, one Sotheby's International Realty's best here in Northeast Florida. Her business skyrocketed to over $20 million in 2022. It is already off to a great start in 23. She has been in the business for just over 6 years. A Jacksonville Business Journal listed her as one of the top real estate agents in Greater Jacksonville. For those who seek the highest level of service, expertise, reach in Florida's East Coast and beyond, they need to be calling Savannah Dougherty. Savannah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I don't know if my exact numbers are off, but they're somewhere close in there. Our system where I pull up numbers, that's why I never want to be precise on someone's numbers. But I did notice, obviously, you jumped up last year in production. So I really want to dig into, what are some of the things maybe you were doing differently? You've been at Sotheby's now for a couple of years, like 2.5 years roughly, I think?
Maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on your LinkedIn. That's where I get all your information. Everybody knows that. so if the LinkedIn's not correct, but welcome to the show. As I like to kick it off for everyone to get a little bit to know you and a little bit of background before you got into real estate. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little about where you're from.
Okay, so I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. My parents moved me and my siblings up to Yulee, Florida, when I was in preschool. So I remember Yulee when it was just a few stoplights. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the Walmart, Target, anything like that. So I've seen over the years how much it's grown. So yeah, I'm from Yulee. I service all of Nassau County as well as Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. I'm very familiar with both because even though I live in Yulee, I still have family that lives here in Jacksonville, so I'm over here a lot.
So, young Savannah, you're at Yulee High.
Yes.
Okay. What is, they're about ready to throw you out of the nest. Mm-hmm. What was your vision at that time of what you wanted to do?
So, I've always been a teeth person. I love hygiene. I'm always one that looks at people's teeth. So I thought, okay, well, that's the perfect profession for me. So right. I was going to school for dental hygiene. Well, then I had some people talking in my ear, you have scoliosis, you probably shouldn't do that because you're leaning over in a chair all day long, mm-hmm. and you're not going to be able to do it that long, and you're going to school just to be able to do this for a couple years. So I was like, okay, what else am I interested in? And I've always thought sonography was cool and ultrasounds for babies. So I thought, okay, maybe radiology.
Right.
Well, I got into both programs at FSCJ. And I kind of had this come to Jesus moment, this is not what you're supposed to do. And I just got panicked and I told my father, look, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I turned down both programs and now I'm kind of back to square one. And so I've gone to school, spent all this money and time, and then it just didn't work out. I felt like I just wasted a bunch of time and money, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with my life?
Right.
So he has been a custom home builder for years, and he mentioned, he's like, why don't you look into real estate? And I was like, well, I know there's more to it than just opening doors for pretty houses.
Right.
You see all these shows on TV about,
right.
This is the luxury of real estate, but what really is real estate? So I told him, I said, yeah, I'll look into it. And he was like, well, if you do it, I will pay for your school and your first round of dues. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what all that is,
right.
but I'll look into it. So I went and started YouTubing and trying to find videos of what real estate agents actually did, right. and went back to him and I was like, I think I want to do this. So I did the online course, which I do not recommend doing. I recommend going in person to take the real estate course. But I did that while I was working because at the time I was newly married. Mm-hmm. I couldn't really take off a week of work. So I did the online course, which took me about 3 months because it just took longer than it should have.
Right.
So
what are some of the things, a couple of questions I'm going to bring up there. So what are some of the things, because are you even 22 yet at this time?
Because you
never finished, you didn't finish the degree.
I just got my associates. Okay. I just finished out and was
right.
let me just get a degree.
Just think how much money you did save.
Yeah, exactly. But there was all kinds of science classes that didn't even go towards my degree, so
right.
it was whatever. So yeah, I think when I got licensed, I was 21.
Okay. So what you said you were working, you just got married. What kind of other work were you doing? Were you waiting tables? What were you doing?
So when I first got a job, I was working in the daycare at Anytime Fitness. Then I moved up to behind the counter at Anytime Fitness because I've always been like active and thought, okay,
Right.
and I knew the owner and she was just a great person to work for.
Yeah.
And I love baking. So then I went to a local bake shop. It was called Bliss Cupcakery. And so I was making cupcakes and helping with cakes and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I love kids. So then I went to nannying. And at the time when I was in high school, I was a waitress and nannying and doing all these different side hustles. But at the time that I got my real estate license, I was nannying for a military family.
Okay. Well, because, like I said, before the show, I think, you are a younger person, and I've said this numerous times on the episode. Back when I was growing up, the real estate agent typically was, that spouse of, maybe the other spouse had the regular job and the income coming in, and they started off as a hobby, and one thing led to another. But most real estate agents were not 22 years old getting their license.
Yeah.
And, obviously, so if you look back, you really saved a lot of money.
But me and my husband, when I first started doing this, like we were counting penny, like it was very tough.
Yeah.
So it has been a blessing for sure.
Well, we'll definitely dig into that because we definitely want to, get across, especially, to your friends. I know you we talked a little earlier about asking you getting in and some of your struggles. But those other types of jobs that you did as any young person, and trust me, there's more people who went to that 4-year college, spending $50,000 a year, some of them, and after $200,000, still don't know what they want to do. And so you feel blessed, but you've stabbed at a couple of things to kind of, it sounds like to get a feeling, and you chased your heart a little bit because it's what you like to do, right? I mean, it's I think you would agree. Real estate, you better like doing it because it'll punish you.
Yes.
It puts you down sometimes, and you're like, "Why am I doing this?" But so you chase some of those things. What are just if you could think just a moment of anything that you did previously, like you said, you were waiting tables while you were in high school and babysitting and all that kind of stuff. What are some of the things that you took from that into real estate today? And when we're talking to some of these clients now, especially as a young person, you might be dealing with someone 15, 20 or more years older than you are, and who probably bought 2 or 3 homes already, or exchange, have a family, grown it all, gone on through all those life things where you're really at the beginning of your cycle. So what are some of the things you took from those small little jobs that you think has made you a great real estate agent?
Just really caring about people, and it's having those relationships, and I think it's really just, this business is about people. And if you don't care and it's just all about the money for you, it's going to be very hard to be successful in this. But I truly care about people and their stories, and, whether they're coming here or leaving because they're in the military, or they recently got divorced, or they're having a new baby. There's so many different stages in life, and I think that's just kind of...
Yeah. No, and that's what I expected to draw out of you. I mean, you did a lot of service, especially working at daycare. I don't know how someone can do that. I mean, I love my kids.
It was only
too,
2 kids.
But okay, I don't know how many kids I could, or someone else's kids I could love on for so long. You know what I mean? So, All right. So you explained the dental hygienist. You've gone through school. You get your license. You're deciding where to work because Sotheby's is your second home in real estate. What are some of the things that you went through, or did your dad give you some advice? Did you talk to other real estate agents? What made you decide to go to your first brokerage that you decided?
Okay, so I was actually working under a very successful agent for about 3.5 years with Century 21.
Okay.
And
so you had a mentor.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was my family's realtor for years. I've known her since I was little. And so whenever my dad said, here's the money for this, and this is who you need to go see, whether you work with her or you just get some tips from her. But we worked very well together, and so I had learned everything that I know from her for the last 3.5 years before I went on my own. So that was definitely a huge part of my business.
How important, you luckily had some, you knew this person, your dad, obviously, because he's in the industry. For someone coming in, like, we're talking about your friends, how important is it for that new agent, if they don't have that family connection, which was easy for you to make because you knew this person and knew their success already, to find someone like that and really, if you can't be their assistant or partner or whatever, but really to bond with in the office, or maybe it could be at another brokerage, who knows, but to find someone like that to follow and learn from.
It's very important. Like Marissa on my team, she's a new agent, and she jumped in with me, and I've been training her, and that's something that I'm passionate about too, because I had that as a new agent, someone to mentor me and teach me everything to know about real estate. I'm very passionate about helping other agents do the same. You don't learn what we do in real estate school, so it's very important after you get licensed to have, whether the brokerage has really good training or you jump in under somebody or on a team or what, but I always, anytime anybody asks me, I want to get into real estate, what do I do? What are the first steps? And I say, after you get licensed, you need to find a mentor, a team, or a brokerage with training.
Since we're jumping on that subject already, do you feel like, obviously, some of these people coming to you, personally, and you're like, oh my God, I'm sure there's some of them you're like, who knows, maybe they'll get it, or, but based on your personal experience, you're like, I don't know if this person's really going to be dedicated, or it's important. Maybe they go talk to, even before they even get their license. Go talk and sit down and have coffee or whatever.
Yeah. So before we even started recording, I was telling Tracy that I have agents or newer agents or people that are just looking to get their license. They reach out to me daily. Facebook, Messenger, text, whatever it may be, just asking me, whether they have gotten their license or not. And if they haven't, just saying, hey, what does that look like to get my license? And I always say, just go and shadow an agent for the day or for a week or whatever it may be to see if you really want to do what they do. And it's always, every day it's different in this business.
Yeah.
So you probably need to shadow them for more than a week, honestly, to see.
Right.
And maybe even a couple of different agents because, like I said, it's always something different. And each real estate agent does their business differently, too. So it'd be good to get different ideas from different agents and shadowing.
The pre-conversation, you're having that with them. I'm sure some of them you get on the phone with. There's more. Well, maybe you do try to express it through messaging, but you get enough of these questions that do you start to ask them directly back? Why do you want to do it? Almost like you're interviewing them to try to punch them in the stomach a little bit to see if they're actually going to withstand the blows.
Yep. And sometimes they can't take a phone call, so I'm on the Facebook Messenger, like voice texting because it is a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, hey, these are some things you need to think about, or I'll ask them questions, or I don't know.
Well, you had your dad a little bit, and you kind of walked into it. But I've had Christina Welch on, one of the top team leads in the area and so forth, as many others, and she said clearly on the it's not HGTV. What are some of the impressions that some of these people who are asking you about it? What is their impression, perception of the business?
I've gotten all kinds of things.
Oh, tell me. Let's share.
Well, a lot of people don't know, and I did a video about this on my social media, but a lot of people don't know how real estate agents get paid. So they think that you're salary plus commission, and that's not the case. We are solely commission, so if we don't close on a home, we're not getting paid. And you can show buyers houses for months, and they don't even
Right.
choose anything. They never close. And then you've wasted all that time.
Interest rates gone up and they decide they're going to wait.
Yes, yes. So there is a lot into that. So I make sure that people know that up front. Oh gosh, there's so much really.
Well, the number one thing we all laugh about is they think they have time. They're like, oh, this is my free, this I can be, more free time, I guess is what they're, how do they say, how do you address that?
Well, I have 2 kids, and so I think people see that as 2. Well, she's a mom, and yes, that is great, but I do a lot of sacrificing of family time and stuff like that to be able to run my business. And I think a lot of people think that you can just sit at home and do a lot of this behind the scenes and not actually have to go out there, get business, show houses on a whim. I'll have someone, hey, can we go see this house right now? Oh, I'm just about to pull into the house to see my babies, but yes, I'll turn around. So there is a lot of sacrificing of time with family, and I think people have the impression that they're going to have all this time on their hands. And yes, you do make your own schedule in this business, but it's not a 9 to 5. I could be writing an offer at 10 o'clock at night.
Well, sometimes the idle time, what does it say that idle time is the devil's, could get in there and start distracting you from what you really need to be doing. And, obviously, we know prospecting is 80-90% of what you do. I mean, you have to be bringing in the next, after you get them in, there's things to do, but that's very minor in this, what it takes to actually get your business up and running, which you've been spending the last 6 years, and finally really, bearing, fruits of your labor. Your first, let's talk about your first, 6 months, 12 months, you're mentoring under this top producer at Century 21. What are some of the things that you were like, oh, wow, I didn't realize, some aha moments that you might have had?
Oh, gosh.
Some things that kind of...
So many.
Your perception versus and then you're actually doing it and going, oh, wow, I didn't know I had to do that.
I think, really taking everything from contract to close and learning all of that, because like I said, in the real estate school, you don't know how to do all of that, but there's so many steps to take, whether it be a buyer and you're first starting to show homes and then you're writing offers and then you're scheduling inspections and this and that. Listings, you're getting the listing ready. You have to have money up front to be able to put a lockbox on, a sign, order photos. There's so many things that are involved with transactions that I really had no idea about, really, the whole process.
Right. Again, one of those things that, even before you get your license, to go shadow someone and find out. Because I think, like I said, a lot of the perception is the HGTV, you're showing the houses and so forth. You're at your first brokerage, you're with this mentor who's showing. What are some of the things, back to advising that new agent, as far as educating yourself? Because even that mentor, of course, was teaching you a lot because they've been doing it a while as you are pouring into your team from that standpoint. But what are some of the things you'd recommend an agent to do? They need to go out and actually set time, whether it's weekly, monthly, or so forth, to further broaden their horizon in real estate.
Well, listening to podcasts is a great one. Is a great one. But also finding training courses that you can do. I'm all about educating yourself because there's constantly changes in laws and practices in real estate. Social media, everything's changing so fast. So I'm all about continuously educating yourself. Whenever I first got in, we would go to the Florida Realtor Convention in Orlando, and they had all kinds of vendors and stuff, but they do classes during the day, so that was very helpful. And anytime I would hear about anything, whether it be at the association's office that they're holding a class, I would try to be at whatever kind of training I could to just get myself educated.
I don't think one of the, we revert back to that new agent. I don't think the average person realizes as well. For you to reached your, I would call your, when I look at your numbers, you reach this like tipping point. All this work you'd been doing, all of a sudden, we'll dig into exactly what you think caused that. But you have to build up. And would you agree, or how important was it to you to gather that education, whether it was at NEFAR, whether it was at, the convention, whether it was at a loan vendor providing something, or the title company, how it built your confidence as an agent?
Yeah, so when I was talking to Marissa, like I said, she works with me and she's a newer agent, and she reminds me of myself when I was newer. I really didn't have that confidence. And so I kind of hid behind my mentor for 3.5 years because I was like, okay, if something happens, like, she'll be there to pick me up if I fall.
Right.
Well, when I went out on my own, we agreed, we were, mutual, and said, it's
cord.
time, Savannah, you're good to go. You don't need any more of me.
Spread them wings.
I was really nervous, but I knew I had it, and I really just had to have that confidence. It really is the confidence. And being a newer agent and being on your own, it is scary, but I felt like that definitely helped me succeed.
And you may not have an answer to this part of it. I just was thinking that, education can provide you confidence, but, sometimes you're sitting there in those classes, and because you haven't run across that situation, you don't really actually know where it actually applies yet until that situation, maybe a title issue or something, whatever it might be. You're learning about it going, oh yeah, okay. The test, right? You study for the test, like when you're supposed to renewal and all this other stuff. Well, you don't really, until it's time to renew, I learned that when I studied for the test. But the same thing when you're learning, you're sitting in there in those classes at NEFAR or whatever. What are there other things that you did to, especially when you launched over on your own, right? I'm sure there was this, moment where you took this deep breath going, hey, tomorrow I'm on my own, where you have learned over 6 years that, your presentation, being in front of a new buyer or seller, that confidence that, hey, yeah, I'm sub 30 years old, but I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this a while, and I probably know more than others. What are some other things that you did personally to just, give yourself that?
Oh, gosh. Practice. I know it's weird, and people say,
no, that's a very good answer, though.
To look at yourself in the mirror and practice things. But also with my listing presentations, I would go over them and study. And before a listing, I would know what has sold in that community. So when they're asking me, I am the expert. You act like you sold it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just really educating yourself. And
do you use scripts on anything you do, or? I know you've probably seen them, but most people shy away from them.
Yeah, no, I don't.
But you practice, it sounds like you practice your own. You created your own.
Yeah.
Because if you're willing to stand in front of a mirror and do those things, but that's very wise advice, even for some of these people who've come out of corporate America and they're 45 years old, getting into real estate. They're going into a business they don't know anything about.
Yeah. Or grabbing a family member and saying, hey, can I act like you're customer and your role play.
Yeah. This is when I made that statement and made me think of a question, but then oftentimes it flew off and maybe we'll come back. Tell us some of these. Tell us some of the things that your mentor, showed you that. I know some of the things you've probably made your own. But there's some things that they told you you're doing still today exactly the way they taught you. What are some of those core things?
To always stay in touch with your sphere and your past customers. She was very, very good about sending cards, or if someone sent a referral, sending them a thank you card with a little gift card in it. For all the holidays, doing little pop-bys or gifts, mailing them, whatever it may be. And so that's what I've taken really into my business, and kind of jumping ahead from my success. I feel like it's because I have constantly stayed in touch with my past customers and my sphere.
I don't have this on here, but that brings up the obvious question, and in talking to other agents, your CRM. What do you grade yourself on your keeping that up to date? Because obviously what you're talking about is core.
Yeah.
And some agents, like, they do go through these periods of times, and if they're still an agent, then realize, oh, how important that is. Our guest speaker at RE Bar Camp this year, when I had her on, Marky Lemons, name came there to me. She says she tries to add 8 people to her CRM every day.
Oh, wow.
So I imagine, roughly 5 days, at least 40 people a week she's adding there to whatever campaign she's making, because she realized what you're talking about, saying that. What are some creative ways that you, because now you've been 6 years in the business, you basically grew up in Yulee, you went to Yulee High School, so people know who you are. What are some ways that you stay top of mind? Because we know some of these people are not buying and selling today. It might be 3 or 4 years, but how does Savannah stay top?
Stay top of mind by drum roll, social media. I feel like, because I still have people to this day. I see you all the time. Oh, I loved your picture. Oh, I loved your video on social media. It's on Instagram or Facebook. And it's just really staying in front of them with these posts, whether it be a personal about me or about the team, or my favorite spots in Jacksonville or Amelia Island. Not just doing, just sold, just listed, which is great, but making it more personable. And
you have 2 Instagram pages, right? You have a personal and then
I have a
do.
personal and a business.
Because I think I just went on the business one, and you could see where you hey, I just sold this, and a lot of the type advertising. You try to separate them, and people cross over, or I mean, how do you?
No, my pages separate them.
Yeah, because it appeared, at least I didn't scroll all the way down to when you first started the page, but it appears your business page was a lot of business. I'm listing this house, I'm selling that house, and I was recognized for this. Maybe there's a picture there of one of you and your team or something like that, doing something. But I would imagine there was more the personal photos of you and your kids and husband on the other page.
I like to keep it separated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do you feel that way? Because different agents have different opinions. Yeah. I don't think there is an exact science to it, although some people think there is.
No, I don't know. I like having them separate, but I feel like on my business, like I said, I still do like to have that personal touch. So full disclosure, I have someone that runs my social media. It's not just someone overseas, whatever, that I've never met. I know this girl, I trust her,
right?
And she does a great job. But before she posts, she always sends it to me, so I have to review it, and I help her write the captions. So it's me, and it's not some automated system or whatever, and it doesn't sound anything like me. I want to make sure it sounds like me. I want the property description to be right. I want, whether it's just sold, I want it to be about that family and just personal.
Right. So. Right. Well, that actually opens up I think is one of the biggest challenges. And speaking to 140 something top agents, is obviously you've outsourced a little, got some help on your social media. At what point did you reach that point? Did you get mentored on when hey, I'm maxed out, I need help? I need, whether it's start a team, I need to have some, when did you reach that?
So
boiling
as far as there's different levels for the team and then social media. So when I hit that point with social media is when I would go a week without posting because I was so busy with real estate. And then by the time I was done with work for the day, I didn't want to have to do make a post. And so it got to the point where I just knew I had to hire, or else I wasn't going to be top of mind. I wasn't going to stay in front of people. So I think it's worth every penny to pay someone to make sure that you are advertised well. And then for the team aspect, like I said, I have 2 young kids, so it gets very difficult for me to be showing and doing things all the time. And again, I have it on my heart to train people and such. So I felt that I was ready to take on that role. Let's see, what was it, like a year ago? So a year into Sotheby's.
Did you feel your production had reached a level that you were kind of being pulled away from doing those little things that we need to do consistently every day to stay top of mind because of the business?
Yeah.
You were actually out doing, business that it was pulling you away, that you're like, hey, I need that assistant.
Yeah. And so you've got, 6 to 10 deals going, but then you have these people that want to see a house, and you just feel so overwhelmed, but you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose them,
Right.
And you want to make sure to help everyone. So I just felt like, okay,
Right.
I can't juggle all this by myself. So it's time to bring someone in to help me.
All right. So who is the first? What is the first position you bring on? Because different agents have different ideas of who that is. Did you think you made the right? Tell us what position it was, and do you think it was correct? Do you think you should have? Because it's only been about roughly over a year, but what did you think about your decision?
So the first person is a TC, so transaction coordinator, and they take everything from contract to close. Even if you are a solo agent, I highly recommend that you hire a TC just because it's worth every penny. I think it's like $400 or something for them to do each transaction.
Right.
And I could be on the road showing houses, and they're behind the scenes making sure the lender has what they need and the title company has what they need, and they're just taking care of everything. And it is such a relief. So that's the first one that I always say to people. And then I hear a little bit of, an admin or
assistant. Yeah, that's
or a licensed agent,
assistant,
or for me it was a licensed agent first is who I brought on.
You needed them licensed. What kind of things were they taking off your plate?
A little bit of both. So sometimes it's more of a buyer's agent, but for me it was kind of help me with whatever you can. Now Marissa's role is she pretty much handles buyers, and I'm more listing side, but it varies. Like if the buyer specifically wants to work with me, then I might have her take over a little bit of the listing sides too, and just so she can get experience on all of it. Yeah. Looking back, that worked for you. You feel that's you wouldn't change. No, and I am a big person on like everything happens for a reason, and so I feel I don't think anything would have. I don't know. I wouldn't want anything to change because I feel like my business has been successful, so I'm okay with it.
All right, so directly circle back to our original discussion and the things you've learned in 6 years. Someone listening to the show right now, that new agents just got their license. What are a few things that you're telling them? Hey, this is what you need to do this next 30 days.
Okay. Going back, finding a mentor or team to jump in with and learn everything they know. Another thing that I did that I always recommend for newer agents, and my company is big on this, is the ninja selling. We did this, I think it was like a 4-day training, and then you get licensed as a ninja. And there are some really
Doesn't
good
mean you
tips
get paid
in
anymore.
That. No, you don't. But there are so many good tips that if you take what they've taught you and implement them into your business, you're going to succeed. Like they're very good tips. So
is that like an online the ninja thing, or is that somewhere you can go to that? Where do they do the ninja training?
So there's a book, and I think there's a few tools that you can do more like on your own. But I don't know. My company just set it up and had the lady in there. We just paid the money and showed up.
Right. So. Right. You had enough people to take it, and they came to you.
Okay, so we've got
mentor, ninja training.
Okay. And then let's just say again, educating yourself with the podcast or YouTube. I mean, that's what I did.
Right.
I just went and even on social media, I'll find these successful agents and I'll kind of just scroll through and see, what are y'all doing? What are you doing in your business?
Well, there's no doubt, and anyone listening, you can go on YouTube, I had Loyola Velasquez. She's with Real. She's big on. I'm trying to think of the other young lady. You remind me a lot of her because you guys look alike. She's down in South Florida. She actually has an Australian accent, which is kind of, or I think she might be British actually. So one half dozen other there. But anyway, they're big on. They do a lot of reels. So they're giving you those quick tip hits, but then they also, I think Lola has records her whole, because she started just dialing, and she actually recorded herself like calling FISBOs or something like that. So that there's those videos that are on there.
See, I'm not the best at the whole cold calling, but I did think of something else while you were talking about that. The last one would be to reach out to your friends, family, people you went to school with, whatever, maybe let them know that you recently got licensed and this is the company you're with and you're so excited, and just brand yourself.
Great point. And it's great because you're a young person, and sometimes you have to understand, because even if you're older and you change into careers like this, your friends and family, some of them will immediately like, oh yeah, we're, my father's looking to sell, or we're looking to sell, we're going to use you. They might be your first deal, and they're proud to be your first deal. There's others that are going to sit back and wait.
Oh, I went through that.
Yeah. Tell us a little about that. Tell us a little about the friends and the family experience.
It happened to me. It happens to all of us. I tell people all the time. I mean, I have newer agents like, yeah, my friend used this person instead and I'm like, it happens, okay? I mean, the first 2 years that I was in business, I'd say it was pretty slow. And, I was helping her a lot. Right. But I had close friends use an agent that they had used in the past, or
mom used.
And so it happens.
But I mean, are you seeing?
I don't want to say anything bad.
Well, I know, but it's natural, and they shouldn't feel too bad. I mean, you feel bad a little because you're like, oh, I wish I had that deal. But you have to take the learning side of it, right? The gap and the gain, right? The gain is they're not, one, you don't know what the relationship really they had with that other person too. It might have been, type thing. Or you and I know we get into deals where, especially if a young person, a first time home buyer, and they're young, mom and dad come in and they're like, oh, you're going to use this lender, you're going to use this real estate agent, type of thing. So we don't know that kind of background. So don't feel bad. But there's also, especially, I've been 18 years I've been doing this, and there's some friends I know they're solely going to use me. Oh, they just what they tell me. Even neighbors, they say, oh no Tracy, we did shop the rate, but we're using you, type of thing, and it's great. But there's others too that they don't want you to necessarily know your finances and the other pains in their life.
And I think too, they see you as this little girl, or they see you as just something else and not actually the professional that you are.
Yes.
And so really for me, it was like, it fueled a fire in me to like prove to you that I am who I say I am. I am this professional.
I'm going to ask this question like a lawyer, because I think I know the answer to it. How, obviously in a polite way, you're not like taunting them in their face, but what are you doing to show them, I've been doing this 6 years and I know what I'm doing?
I honestly think it's just by the success. I mean, seeing that the sales or my posts on social media, it's like, wow, okay, she is a top producer. She is doing this. She actually knows what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the perfect great way to get across to your friends and family. I went on your YouTube, and there was a couple videos you were talking about the vacant lot, because I'd never heard you speak before. So I want to say, well, how does she present herself? And you were dressed nice, and you were in front of that lot, and you were explaining it. I think you got to do more of that.
Yes, personally. I know. I get that all the time, and I actually I hate doing videos. I hate it.
We're going to do one after this show. I haven't told you that yet. But
I had so many compliments on those little, either the property videos or the minute videos that I did on Instagram. And people were like, oh, my gosh, you need to do this more. Yeah. And I'm like, I do know. Like, I know everybody loves it, but I really hate doing it.
Well, I mean, I've talked on the show before. What's it, Mr. Beast, right? The big YouTuber. He says, commit to shooting 100 videos. Shoot, and because like you said, you're nervous. You're nervous coming on here, but hopefully you're a little more relaxed now. We're just having a conversation. But when you just realize that those people that are watching you, for the most part, those are all the people who love you already.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you stumble or stutter or mispronounce a word.
And I did those takes quite a few times. Okay. When people are like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how you do those stories or those reels," I'm like, y'all don't know, but I did that take like 20 times. It is not a first take.
Oh, you got the perfectionist going on.
Yes.
The first thing you said was mentor, which obviously helped you tremendously. We mentioned earlier, as a new agent, for you it was easy because you were kind of more or less, you were matched up because you knew this lady for a long time. She knew you with the pigtails and that kind of thing, right? So it was an easy match. Where someone coming in, maybe they're from outside the area, maybe they got they're a military spouse, just got transferred to the area. They know they're going to be here for years. They want to get into real estate, right? So they don't really know anyone yet. What are some ways you would think, knowing because you're you're on the mentor side, that you would suggest to someone coming in how to reach out and find one of these people that are willing to mentor?
Good question. So for Marissa, it was through someone that she had interviewed to go join their team, and they actually reached out to me and said, "We love her, but we just don't think she's the best fit for us." When we were interviewing with her, she reminded us of you. And so I always think it's very good to find someone with similar values and ethics and such. So maybe going on Google and, going through a few agents, reading their bios, seeing what they're about, and maybe just finding someone that you connect with.
I heard that, I think it might have been on a podcast or something, but you mentioned it very early in the show. Everyone does their business differently. And to find, and you may have to go and talk to a handful of agents to find someone who does business the way you think you want to do, because I think you've probably evolved your business over 6 years. You've changed it, tweaked it, whatever. Everyone's going to do that. But I think we all go in with some sort of vision of how we want to do it. Like, oh, hey, I want to knock on doors. Well, let me find the best door knocker in the business because I like doing that. Okay, well, that's the route that's the person you probably want to go talk to first. Would you agree?
Yep.
Yeah.
I do. And you're not really going to read this from someone's bio, but let's say that you meet with someone and you're more of a people person. You want to meet the needs of your customers and such, and this person's all about going after the money, and that's probably not going to be a good fit. You're probably gonna.
How do you sniff that out? You mentioned that a couple times.
I feel like you just know.
You just can feel it?
Yeah, or you hear it, like when, I don't know, just the way people are sometimes, or the way they talk, and it's like, do you really care about people? I don't know.
Well, you can be transactional. I think, just talking to, I think a lot of the top agents I've had on are more like you, from that standpoint. They're not, they do realize and build relationships even after the point where, like, after the transaction, they're still like, hey, let's go out to dinner or what, type of thing. Where there must be agents out there that are more transactional. Oh, you want to go look at that? Got you on Zillow. Because the client can be very transactional too. Sometimes these clients are like, I want to go see that house, and they don't want you to give them any more information. They think they already know more than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've dealt with those kind of people too.
100. Imagine, and you'd like to think, well, oh, she's young and doesn't know, but actually, it's at all levels. It doesn't necessarily go with it. I went on your website. You, I don't know how old that statement is in there, but I want you to express to me, based on this people relationship that we're talking about here and your relationship building, based off a couple of the statements that are on your.
Oh gosh, okay.
It's on your LinkedIn, on your website.
Okay.
Do you even remember what that statement is? You probably don't.
I'm trying to think which statement you're talking about.
Basically, so this is almost like an interview,
Okay.
but this is for, hopefully a client who may be watching, or maybe another person who may think, you're really cool. I'd like to, match up with Savannah and be on her team because I like the way she's thinking, and that's the way I want to run my business. You have just the phrase basically, unmatched devotion to your clients. What does that mean to you?
Oh gosh, way to put me on the spot. Like I said, I am just a people person. I really truly care about people and what they're going through, and so giving my all in a transaction, giving my all to the customers, and meeting whatever needs that it is.
Give us some, because all right, a customer is referred to you. Okay. How does Savannah? What's the first thing? Yeah, there we go. Stop that wiggling.
My long legs over here.
Yeah. What's the first thing you're doing that you don't know? You haven't never talked to this person. Just Sally, a customer from 6 months ago, just referred you.
Okay, I get this a lot, so I should be able to handle this.
You're gonna make this phone call. How are you How are you handling this? Because I imagine, and a part of it is you're not only gonna try to win them over that you're a real estate agent that knows your stuff, but you're a little different. You're gonna have this.
I'll tell you, normally
devotion.
when I have people that are referred to me by others, I think they just trust who referred them. They don't ask me a lot of questions. Really, it's me asking the questions and what are your needs? What can I do to help you? Where are you looking? That kind of thing. I really don't get too much of them asking about me because I think mainly our conversation is really focused on meeting their needs.
Well, that's really where I'm going with this.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I want to get out of you here. I told you I wouldn't let you stumble. So, because I think that is where the relationship, you get the referral, but as we talked about Krista Mashore, she mentions, one thing she does a lot of video about is because that way people really get to know her before they even actually meet her, right? So they've been introduced, so you've been endorsed by someone that obviously these people know, like, and trust, that they should know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
But now you have friend Sally over here who referred you. You now need to make friend Joe, who's just referred to you. And what are some of that initial conversation? Do you like to do it over the phone, or do you try to meet face to face? What are some of your best practices do you think work best?
The initial is over the phone because I want to, as soon as they get referred, I want to make contact immediately and not, I haven't heard from her. Let me go reach out to somebody else.
Exactly.
And if they're local, then we go ahead and set up a time to meet in person. If they're not, then normally they're fine with phone calls. Some people want to do a Zoom or a FaceTime or whatever. And that's kind of how it goes.
What do you think are some, imagine you've done enough times now, because the one thing I really liked about your numbers too is your volume went up, but it was your average transaction, you probably know the exact number, is probably about 400,000. Is that about right? Somewhere in that area? Yeah. So you've had a lot of at-bats to get there with that price point. What are some key questions other than how many bedrooms you want? Do you think you need? What do you think? What are some kind of personal questions you use to poke and try to draw more information out of them?
Normally, do they have kids? Because you need to know what school, like the district they want to be in. If they want to be close to the beach, if they want to be closer to
So are you asking them, you dig into hey, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What do you guys normally do?
If they like to golf, then I kind of narrow it down to the golfing communities.
Right. The next statement you had on there, or little phrase, best service. In Savannah's
Am I biased?
Everyone can say that, right? Everyone can say, I'm going to give you the best service.
Yeah.
What have you found based on your customers' reaction? Because you've built these relationships. Imagine they're giving you some referrals and so, or reviews type of thing. What do you think if you were explaining to someone that you didn't know, a client, about what is the best service to you as a real estate agent? What are some of the things that you're doing that they don't even know about, but they're going to experience through the process, and you're going to tell them?
Okay, well, the biggest one, and this is something that I know a lot of people complain about, that they've worked with an agent in the past and they just did not have communication. They never answered their phone. I'm constantly answering my phone. If I don't, I'll call you right back. Hang up the phone, call them back. Just staying in touch. And if I have their property listed and, it's been a few days, I'm constantly giving them updates so they don't feel like they're in the dark. They never hear from me. I listed their house and then I walked away.
Right.
I constantly
people go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
I think that's the biggest thing, because when I first started, that was the biggest complaint that I heard, not of me, but from other people, and that's what they experienced. And I was like, God, I don't want to be like that. I want to make sure that I'm answering my phone, and if I don't, for any reason, that I'm sending them a message, I'll call you right back, and I get back to it.
Well, I think that's I hear that from, when I go out as a loan officer and talk to real estate agents. That's like, and I'm like, they don't pick up their phone?
No,
what?
I had a lady. I had the weirdest call. So I was actually at Landmark Title, and I was just sitting there chatting with some friends in there, and my phone rings, and I'm like, I don't know this number, and we're in the middle of a conversation. Did I get this? Do I walk out? And I was like, I just knew, like, okay, you need to answer your phone. So I was like, hold on, guys. Walked out, and as I answer my phone, the lady was like, oh my gosh, somebody answered their phone. And I was like, what? I was like, hello? And she said, I'm looking to sell my house. You're the first person that's answered the phone, so I'm hiring you. And I was like, what? You didn't even interview me or anything. She just said, no, I'm serious. Come to my house. We'll get it started. But you're the only one that answered. And I've called a couple of people in front of you. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's how easy it is? Okay.
Yeah. That does blow my mind, because think about that. If I don't answer, because what went through your mind is, this could be a telemarketer, and I'm just going to say, hey, I don't, great, appreciate you, but I'm
all day long.
Yeah, all day long. And then in this case, that is your win. So you might go another 20 or 30 before another one of those type calls comes along.
I know.
But it's going to go through your mind to remember, oh, when I remember that one I answered and she said, come right over, let's list the house. I mean, every time I try to explain to people, I don't understand it, because, if you're calling me at 8:00 in the evening, it's not to shoot the bull. You're calling me because there's a transaction. Yeah, we might be sitting there watching TV, but I would rather go make the money and take my kids to Disney World than sit there on the couch and say, call me tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Because you're calling for a reason, something of urgency, or there's some stress out there. Obviously, this lady sounded like she was probably going through a little bit of stress, that she wanted to find someone right away. She just wanted to get this knocked out, get it listed, and move on. And, you're the one who answered with a sense of urgency, right? Yeah. Fights for them throughout.
Okay. So I can give you maybe some examples.
Yes, good.
Real estate is hard, and like I said, it's always something different. But you need that person that's going to be advocating for you, representing you, and doing everything they can through the process to have your best interests. And that's what I do, really, because there's always situations that come up during a transaction, and the customers might not even know, but I'm behind the scenes putting out fires so that they don't have to deal with it.
Right. I think that, I had Britt on with Landmark Title.
I love her.
And I, being in the lending side, talking to title companies, so we get whoever you guys choose, or whoever chooses the title company, we have to deal with whoever it is. And for years, there was only, Landmark, Action Title down in St. Augustine, maybe one other that I would, if I was in control, if I had to refinance and had control, I'm trying to guide my customer to one of those three, because I know the sense of urgency. They answer their phone type of thing. They answer their email quickly and get back, so I can move on to what I need to do and get documents out and so forth. But I think a lot of people don't realize Landmark puts out a lot of, those title companies good title companies put out a lot of fires that you and I don't even ever hear about it. It comes up and they're like, well, we're the only ones that can solve it, and they solve it and they don't even tell us it wasn't even there, type of thing. Those are the ones, that you love. Talk about the importance, though, the communication. The importance of sometimes you have to make a phone call that doesn't have good information. How important is it, though, to have that sense of urgency and make, bite, what do they call it, eat the frog, right?
Yes, yes. And sometimes I'll be with my family and I'm like, I just tell my husband, like, give me a minute. I've got to handle this right now.
Yeah.
Like, I've just got to step outside, make this phone call, get it over with, because the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. And it is tough. But yeah, you just have to bite the bullet.
And it's going to distract you from
you're gonna be
everything that you're doing.
Dwelling on it all night. Yeah. That's why I'm like, let me go ahead and talk to them and get it out of the way, break the bad news.
How do you like to approach that call, though? As a salesperson, obviously if it's a deal-ending catastrophic thing, and okay, there's, but when you approach them, hey, I like to say, hey, I got some good news and I got some bad news.
Yeah.
How do you approach that kind of difficult call?
That's a good one too. I think it really depends on the customer and what I've learned about them and their personality thus far. Because normally when this happens, you've kind of been working with them for a little bit. So you kind of know how they like to be communicated to or don't.
Or which spouse to communicate
yes,
to.
Yes, that's true. So at that point, I kind of have a feel for, okay, how do I handle this for them specifically? And that helps me. And not just.
Do you search out, before making that call, I imagine you try to find some solutions for them.
Yes, I do.
Because you want to spend.
This is the last straw. Like, this is where, it's this or nothing. I've already done everything I can. I've already exhausted all my other options. And if I'm making this phone call, it's because there's nothing else I can do. And I'll let them know that. Like, look, we've tried to do this, or we've tried to make the deal work, and it's just not, so this is what's going to happen.
And that expresses a little bit of your professionalism, your experience, because you're obviously dwelling on other past deals of what did you do in a past deal? Or maybe you called your mentor and said, hey, this is a situation I got, what can I do? And they give you the dead roads and the options that you have.
Yeah. Well, now it's more so I call my broker. Okay, I want to make sure that there's nothing else, right? Yeah. And so they're very, very helpful.
That's... Every agent should be doing. Everyone in sales should be doing it, because there's some things you may not come to your mind right away because you get that bad news and you're like, okay, I got to call my client, and this is like within a few minutes. And you're like, how am I going to handle that? Well, let me make a couple phone calls. To see if there's a solution. So when I call the customer and say, because you don't want to call them and say, this thing just came off the tracks.
So I'll give you an example. We almost had a deal fall through like 2 weeks ago. And if we didn't close on this house, my sellers couldn't close on their new house they were purchasing.
Big chain of events.
So, and they had already moved out of the house, and we were supposed to close the next day. And I get a call from the buyer's agent, and she's like, we have an issue. The lender underestimated how much they were supposed to bring to closing or something like that. Right. And I was like, well, how much are we short? And she was like, $3,000. And I was like, okay, so what are we going to do to make this work? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, how much are you giving to make this work? Right. We're going to make this work, because if my people do not close on this, they don't get to purchase their new home.
$3,000 is nothing at that point.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to give this much. You're going to give this much. Are you okay with that? Yes. Okay. Well, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. So we made it work. But there's always something. So before I called my seller, I said, let me make sure this happens. And then I told them, look, here's the bad news, but here's the good news. This is what's going to happen, so that we can make sure it closes.
Yes.
That's always
Because you really didn't even have to tell them. You could have just gone, because they weren't in that decision-making process there. But that brings up a very important thing that I've been talking about a lot in the latest episodes is the importance of the collaboration of the two agents, because I do see, and I've personally experienced, my wife's an agent, and personally experienced where sometimes some of these agents on the other end get a little combative, almost like they're the ones buying or selling the house. Yeah. How important is it to, like, you know, get to know, but have that collaboration that we're going to get to the goal line attitude?
Yeah, it's very important because you're working on a deal for 30 plus days. And so if you're working with this other person and they're not cooperative, they're not nice to you, it's going to be very difficult. So even up front, when we start, you know, if they bring an offer to me or I bring an offer to them, I try to have that relationship up front. And get on good terms.
Do you try to, try to get out to some of these events and meet some of the agents?
Yes.
Well, I imagine, and you probably know a lot of the ones in your greater Yulee, Fernandina, Amelia area. But you're doing deals in Jacksonville with some of these agents you may have never even seen or know of their real estate company that they're working for, a brokerage or whatever. How important is it, as you grow, as you experience, to get out and kind of, even if you go to a training, you may not, may be good or not good, but to go around the room and kind of meet some of the other agents so you kind of know who they are.
Yeah, it is very important. I had recently, I had like a newer agent reach out to me, and they were going to be bringing an offer, and they were actually asking me some questions. I said, hey, up front, just want to let you know, like, this is my heart to help, like, train people. I'm not your broker or anything, but if you ever need anything, like, don't look at me as one of those agents that thinks they know it all and they're not going to help you and fend for yourself, whatever. Like, it's competition. I was like, if you need anything, please. And he was like, wow, I've never met another agent that was like you. And I'm like,
or just openly in the initial conversation, express some of your personal
because they were like, hey, I just
and
want to be upfront with you right now. I'm newer, so it's going to take. And I was like, that's fine. If you need anything, let me know. I'm here.
I know you've had this happen, so to give some juice to the podcast, how many times have you had that agent on the other end who's a little more senior in life?
Oh,
Not necessarily,
Yes, I know where you're going.
They see your picture and they immediately say, "Oh, she's young. She doesn't know what she's doing."
Yes, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's young or being female? Because sometimes I've had some agents think that it's because you're female.
For me, I think it's because I'm young.
Yeah. How do you handle that?
Kill them with kindness. I don't give it back to them. I'm just like, okay, like, I'm just gonna be me.
Right.
And that's all I can
kind of do the jujitsu, right? Use their own weight against them.
Yeah. But yeah, they're like, they degrade you, they're very rude, they think they know it all and you don't know anything, and it's just why do people have to be like that? I don't.
Well, there's sometimes my wife will ask me, hey, do you know this agent? And I may know their broker because I've probably had them on the podcast or someone in their brokerage if I find out where they're from, that type of thing. But go on LinkedIn. Not all, but it will give you an idea. Like, I mean, obviously, I go on LinkedIn. I saw you. Hey, you've been, it was February 2017, if I remember correctly, right? Is that
unlicensed? Yes, that's when I started.
I got
licensed.
I mean, you immediately start to, in the loan world, you can go on the National Mortgage Licensing Service, NMLS, Consumer Access, and you can pull up any mortgage loan officer, and it will tell you, if you click on their they have a last 10 jobs or something, or 10 years job, and it'll tell you, what their experience is. Yeah. Did they start last month, or have they been doing this?
I bet if they looked at mine, they'd be like, oh yeah, no. She was a nanny.
But immediately someone went on there. They look at, oh, if I pulled up your LinkedIn, you've been doing this for 6 years. Well, and then you were at the brokerages you're at. I mean, it automatically should give you the credibility, because I know that Century 21 is very popular up there, and you were around top people. You've been in the business. In fact, you've been in the business 6 years already. Is a badge.
What do they say?
Of
like
honor
the
right
first year or two,
80% don't even renew. After the first 2 years, they don't actually renew the license. We talked about continuously educating yourself. Why did you choose to make the move over to Sotheby's?
So whenever I did branch off on my own, I felt like I was still in my mentor's shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody still kind of associated me with her and her team. And so that's when I started to interview brokerages. And at the time, I had this moment of like, okay, I have two that I really, what do I do? And I just had a piece about going to Sotheby's. I just felt like the way they did things was the way that I ran my business, and it is a luxury brand, and that's something that I eventually want to get to that level. Not necessarily at that yet. I mean, I do have luxury listings and such, and luxury is not necessarily a price point.
Yeah.
Let's just get that out there, because we give white glove service to all price points, is what we say. Yeah. But I'm talking about the $1 million plus. I've gotten there, but my normal is about $400,000 or $500,000, and I do treat all of them as such, as the same as my $1 million listings. But I think that's kind of where I was wanting to take my business, and so it just kind of made sense for me.
So, all right, so there was the surface level. Okay. What are some other, as an agent who's changed brokerages, you hopefully, you want to move, you hopefully think you're going to a better, what's better for you. So the surface level stuff, but a lot of the things you just told me are what a lot of the top agents said. A lot of the brokerages, they do the business that way, or like you said, some want to, the luxury, I guess, like Sotheby's, like Engel and Volkers, you got some international influence a little bit there, and that's understandable, but that doesn't necessarily, butter the bread type of thing all the time. You're still working in Yulee and Fernandina in that space, and you're not sitting in Ponte Vedra just waiting for that one or two deals, every 6 months or something. You're doing a lot of transactions. What are some of the things internally that you saw a difference of? And, obviously maybe in your opinion was an improvement? Was it, their technology, their training? What the broker? I don't know.
So they're not necessarily known for training, because normally they hire agents that are pretty established, experienced. So I wouldn't say that. They have a marketing team, which was a big thing for me, and their marketing is just top-notch in general. The people, I really like the people, the broker. I just feel like...
Does he answer or she answer the phone when you call?
Yes, he does.
Because that's important, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like for each person, it's whatever best fits them. So, like, if Sotheby's was a good fit for me, it might not be for somebody else, but I feel like you just have to interview and figure out what's the best fit for you. Right.
How important is that in a real estate agent's career? It sounds like you were matched up with a good mentor. You got along. You were there for 3 years. That was great for you. Now you moved to the Sotheby's. You're comfortable there. You felt you're still in the movement of an upward trajectory. Knowing what I know and the agents that I've talked to, there's some that I've told you, they basically, one of their wrong steps, and obviously they can only blame themselves, was really not actually going to that brokerage that matched with them. Like you said, you kind of felt they did business the way you want to do business. How important is it for an agent in their success as an agent to find the brokerage that does match up, like, and all the things that you've mentioned throughout the show, ethics, integrity, sense of urgency, answering the phone. How important is it to find that to really move your business?
Very, and it's very stressful during that decision-making time, because if you make the wrong choice, it could possibly affect your business. Yeah. So, I mean, your sales and all of that. So, I think it's very, very important.
I want as I mentioned, business made me think, and it's sort of part of this next question, but I'm going to reword it. A lot of the people you say that contact you a lot about real estate, how many people understand that they're actually self-employed and what that actually means?
Not a lot. I have to explain to them, you're hanging your license with a brokerage, but yes, you are self-employed. You have to pay taxes.
They're not calling you at 9 o'clock because you didn't show up to the sales meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's a plus for people to like, oh, I don't have to go to an office. I don't have to do this and that. But there's the other side of things that people don't see about running your own business and what that entails.
I know some people think when they first go to do their taxes the first time is what cuts a lot of agents out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they get that check and they've spent it all, type of thing. Maybe, well, you can't go on payment plans with the IRS.
Yeah, so that's a big thing that I tell people. I'm telling you, it's always something. But I say for people that are looking to get their license to go ahead and I'm a big person on a big believer on like savings, and so I say have a specific savings for your business, because once you get licensed you've got all the startup fees, like you're getting your association, your dues, your lockboxes, signs, marketing a listing if you get one right away, and all of these things that go with it.
Well, you're not counting insurance yet.
Yeah.
And then do you want to actually, you have to start thinking at some point, might not be right away, but at some point you start making money, you got to start putting away for some
and that was my next thing, was every time, and I tell Marissa this, I'm like, every time we get paid, I like to separate my bank accounts. So like I will transfer from my check, immediately I'll put whatever percentage into this specific account so I don't touch it, and that's my tax account.
Yeah.
And people don't do that. They just get paid and they're like, woohoo!
Yeah.
I'm like, no, wait.
The new car rolls out.
Yes, no. Put money away for taxes, please.
We were just talking a little bit about the brokerage and your change. For you personally, as a real estate agent, and I imagine other real estate agents will feel the same way. Others have different needs. What do you think is the most important thing or value? Because that's the brokers that you've worked for, your mentor, gave you great value, right? That's why you went there, or you perceived value is why you went to Sotheby's, and obviously you've been there a year, so I assume hopefully things are working out and they're pouring the value you thought, or giving you more value you didn't even know it was there. But what do you think is one of the most important things the brokers need to be doing if you were, they came down and because I think, and the reason why I asked this question, because I think a lot of brokers miss the boat. There's some very successful brokers, and there's some brokers who are just they're just a broker because they own the sign. You know what I mean? And what is very important as you as a real estate agent that you want from the broker? If you were to narrow it down, I mean, there's a lot of other things like technology and all this other jazz, but what is really the number one thing?
For me, and I've been blessed by the last two, I mean, I have Jeff Chiffon, who's my broker now, and Bobby Ferreira was my broker previously since 2021, and they've both been just there for me, like basically like I'm a daughter, taking me in, answer the phone, give any advice. If I ever need anything, they're there. And that's...
So you felt they always had your back.
Yes,
that's
for
what
sure.
I'm hearing. Yeah.
And like you were saying, I mean, just answering the phone and helping with a question is huge, because some brokers you can't get a hold of.
Right. You're trying to work.
You don't even know where they're at.
You're trying to work a deal. You're negotiating back and forth. There is a little bit of sense of urgency because you're trying to close the deal, but you need a little advice that, hey, how should I approach this situation?
Yeah.
And you need someone to answer the phone and take that stress off you a little bit, 100%. I'm going to close with this question, unless you have anything else you want to add. If you want to tell anybody more about you, I'm going to close with this one. Why are you the best real estate agent, especially to be working in Fernandina, Amelia, Nassau County? Because that's obviously primarily. I mean, we know you could be great everywhere, but obviously we know your heart of your business is there. Why should someone choose Savannah? Why are you the best agent to work for in that area?
Well, number one, I know the area like the back of my hand. I grew up on the back roads of Yulee and Fernandina. I mean, that's just...
And some of them are paved now.
Yes, now they're paved, and now we've got 3 lanes. So I know it very well. Also, why you should work with Savannah is because I do have people's best interests at heart, and I really do care about people, and I love what I do. I love this business, and it brings me joy to see people whether get in a house or move out and move on to their next steps.
Excellent. Well, I think hopefully through the show, if those who've watched or listened, I mean, they see your passion. I mean, you've, I mean, in 6 years and you know, I think it really, I've had a lot of young people on the show, top agents, and it just inspires me. I mean, I'm actually jealous of it because my life really didn't start getting going really till I met my wife, and I was in my young 30s. And to see how far, you know, you've come, you've evolved, you've you know, real estate is not easy. There's people that are you know, you get you know, the friends and family thing that we talked about. That can be very discouraging. It might break people.
Yeah. You've got to have tough skin in this business for sure. It's cutthroat.
I'm gonna actually end with this question right here. I said I was gonna end with that last question, and my computer went out in the background. But when you get kind of, you know, slapped in the face figuratively with a setback, maybe, you know, a deal falls through, it can be what is something that you do to overcome that, or what process did you go through?
There's a couple of things.
Do you go in the backyard? You go in the backyard and scream, and
I'm really into the gym right now, so sometimes if I need to get some like anger out or aggression, I'll go to the gym.
Right.
But really, just what's next? Let's get after the next
Right.
one. I mean,
right.
just taking that no and making it for good. Like, obviously it didn't happen for a reason, so what's next?
You went right back to where I was going to go. She said that earlier, and what happens to a reason. Is that something is your mentor, because obviously they had at-bats when you were just getting started, you didn't know, like all of a sudden you get a setback, you're like, oh my God, that was my deal this month. I was really hoping to do that because we wanted to go away for the, you know, Labor Day weekend or whatever it was, you know, and you get that setback when you're like, because that's the one thing I'm sure you found out is don't count the money until it's actually in your checking account.
Yes,
yeah.
that is true.
Is that something your mentor, or I'm sure your mentor told you?
No,
did
that's
not.
all me.
You've learned over time that, hey, because like you said, you might be sitting there at Landmark Title. You just closed a deal. You have nothing else in your pipeline. You're like, oh my God, I don't have anything else, you know, in process right now. And all of a sudden the phone rings.
Yeah.
And that, knowing that can happen at any moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything you'd like to add?
No, just thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. It was a great conversation.
Honored.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, we're going to sign off. Please like and share. Everyone listening on the audio, please leave a review. Savannah's show, let's see, what's today? Today is the 19th. This will go out Thursday, which is 20, 21, 22, 23, right? Is that right? Something like that. We'll go the podcast there. But obviously everyone who's watched it on Facebook is got it. And then you'll see the reels follow next week out on the